Will you please stop telling people that they will mutate in our lake, in our river?
Yeah, look, we went kayaking. My new tail is very useful. Thank you all so much for coming out. I'm very, very excited to be back here in Minneapolis/St. Paul. Technically St. Paul, but also I'm never gonna figure it out, guys. Let's have a team meeting, right? Can we hyphenate the cities? Can we do something? I'm very excited to be back here. It's been a wonderful time. Actually got more of a chance to explore your cities/whatever is happening here. It was good. We went to Matt's to get Juicy Lucy's again. When I was here last year, everybody was like, you gotta get them. And then I did get them before my flight out, and it was great. And then my buddy Michael and I went to have the Juicy Lucy's, and we did order double cheeseburgers, which does not mean 2 Juicy Lucy's. It is separate. So did we get Juicy Lucy's today? Technically, no. But is it probably for the better because we didn't burn our tongues on the molten hot cheese before we have to talk professionally for 2 hours? Probably all meant to be. Everything's okay. Now, I have already alluded to there being someone on the stage tonight because I am not going to be doing this alone. I can't do this alone, so please make some noise for tonight's guest. You may know him from his appearances on the podcast or his stunning work as Oberon in Rice University's production of A Midsummer Night's Dream that I was in with him as well. Please make some noise for Michael Hollis! How's it going?
How many of you watched that in your English class? Is that a thing that still happens?
Yeah, has anyone actually watched that?
Okay.
You all have homework tonight for YouTube, baby. That's what we'll be doing when we go back to our hotel in undisclosed location. Have you enjoyed your first trip here to the Twin Cities?
I have. I'm very glad that it's summer. This is the furthest north I've ever been. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama. Summer is a pretty good time to leave the South.
Yeah, no, it's been nice. It was good. Not only did we have our attempt at eating Juicy Lucy's today, but we also went all around the mill museum, the river around there, and the waterfalls and stuff, which was really cool. You took quite a liking to that theater that has the blue and the chrome and that part that sticks out like this, like that big nose out of the building.
Taking a liking is strong.
Taking an interest,
Was
maybe?
perplexed by.
So we had a fun time taking in the nature of the sights and the sounds, but now we're here to talk about the words, and the words specifically of 2 very interesting/intense/emotional chapters of Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian. We will be discussing chapters 21 and 22, but before we get into them, this is now your 3rd time on the podcast. So you get the 3rd time guest question, which is, I did tell you about it yesterday, but I didn't remind you this morning, so that's kind of on me. But as I continue to vamp and ask this question in the longest way possible to give you more time to think, if you had a nectar and an ambrosia, what would the nectar drink taste like and the ambrosia food taste like?
So nectar's the drink, ambrosia is the...
Yes,
okay.
That's at least correct, or no one's corrected me, and I've been saying it that way since I started doing this.
I think I'm gonna cheat and say they're both a chocolate chip cookie dough milkshake.
Ooh, that is good.
Halfway.
Yeah, it's between a liquid and a solid. Mm-hmm. If you're on an airplane, they would definitely call it a liquid, though, unfortunately. Yeah. No, I like that. Are you going Percy where they're going to be blue or anything like that, or are you just going straight standard?
I don't know, maybe purple.
Okay.
For fun.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I like it.
You actually get to change the color. I think it's just the taste that's personalized.
Yeah. Well, purple, that's playing to the home crowd. Minnesota, Prince, Purple Rain. That inspired.
Definitely did that on purpose.
Oh, I did this on purpose with the shirt and the socks. That was 1,000% intentional. Shout out to Prince. Anyway, let's get into chapter 21, which is called Blackjack Gets Jacked. Now, I always do try to guess what's going to happen in these chapters before reading them. So all I wrote was all caps, Super Pegasus with 3 question marks. Because in my mind, when you say Blackjack gets jacked, I'm thinking Blackjack's getting jacked, not jacked.
I like that one better. I think we should just keep that headcanon.
Yeah, we can write a little fan fiction where Blackjack, hits the gym and stuff. Mm-hmm. But where we last left our heroes, we had everything going pretty well on Olympus. People were getting various gifts and things like that. And then Tyson ended the chapter on a wonderful note by saying, "All hail Percy Jackson, hero of Olympus, and my big brother." Now that we all scooped ourselves up from no longer being puddles on the floor, we then got into chapter 21. And in chapter 21, Percy and Annabeth are about to leave when Percy sees Hermes looking at an IM. Percy tells Annabeth that he will meet her at the elevator. She asks, "You sure?" And then looks at Percy's face for half of a second and goes, "Yep, you're sure." And then Percy approaches Hermes, and when he does, he sees that Hermes is rapidly going through these iris messages, and these messages are of mortal newscasts all about the destruction. And Hermes comments about the power of the mist, and he says that he is impressed by it as well as mortal ignorance. Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Percy says a classic line of, "Thanks, I guess." And Hermes clarifies that he doesn't mean him. He then brings up Percy turning down immortality. Percy responds that it was the correct choice. And Hermes gives Percy a quizzical look and then turns back to the IMs.
Yeah, I thought this was really cool to realize that Hermes isn't just like the mailman of the gods. Mm-hmm. He's like their PR guy, It's on him to like kind of interface with the mortals, even though, they don't know it, but, just making sure that the storylines, resolve, that the mist does its job.
Yeah.
Making sense of the situation
I like that as well. I like learning more about like the particulars and the nitty-gritty of what they do. Now, Hermes finds it baffling that humans are already trying to write Typhon off as a storm, and they cannot come up with any sort of explanation as to why all of the statues are gone, particularly why Susan B. Anthony is strangling Frederick Douglass. And when I read that, I was very impressed. I was like, is Uncle Rick making a commentary about how Susan B. Anthony was kind of racist? Which I believed was a thing, but I wanted to make sure that I was correct about it, so I did look it up. Looking into it, Susan B. Anthony was not the best. Like, she was going for women's right to vote, but she was like, "Nah, don't let those black people vote." But she was more just like really focused on trying to get women to vote first. And then she had some other comments that were like kind of okay. It was a wishy-washy thing. It's funny because the first result on Google that came up for me searching, "Was Susan B. Anthony racist?" was from like the Susan B. Anthony Foundation or something. And they were like, the short answer is yes and no, and we need some context. And then they explain it. I would recommend looking it up because it actually like shot it pretty straight.
Yeah, but good on them for being like, it's not no.
Yeah. I'm glad that they did admit she's got, her faults. I did look further into Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass, and they were apparently contemporaries. And there were some things like when Susan B. Anthony would have these rallies for the suffragette movement, Frederick Douglass would be there, but then they wouldn't agree on certain things. So they had this friendship, but they would butt heads a lot. The most beefiest the beef got was Susan B. Anthony said that it is harder to be a white woman than it was to be a black man, which I don't think is true based on history, but that apparently was more resolved towards the end of their lives, and especially like when Frederick Douglass passed away, Susan B. was, very positive about him and regretted having any sort of beef with him and stuff like that. That's been history class.
So props to Uncle Rick for making us learn by just Googling something that he put in a book.
Yeah, I found it interesting, and something that we did discuss before, I was briefing, I was like, I'm going to do a little history session on class at the show. And then you had asked, oh, well, I wonder why the statues would be strangling each other.
Right. Were they not like all in the same network? Like
yeah.
The statues working together?
And my thought process with that is maybe it would be something where after everything was complete in terms of the war, the statues went back to like doing their normal thing.
Their default programming.
Right. I guess the default program for Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass was to butt heads. And then whenever Protocol 23 or whatever it is got shut down, they were in mid-strangle. And then that's how we have our statues. Now, Rick making that comment, I thought that was pretty cool because it at least inspired me to do a deep dive on history. Maybe some teenagers did it as well. Or maybe some teenagers went, haha, that's funny, and then continued to read. Percy asks how rough things are in the city, and Hermes says that they're not too bad aside from the mortals just generally being shook. But he does call New Yorkers the most resilient bunch of humans he's ever seen. And as a New Yorker, I would wholeheartedly agree. We roll with the punches, we go with things, we don't worry about making a big fuss about it as well. COVID hit, everyone wore masks, and we were big boys and girls and everyone else is about it. We didn't complain about my ears. Just put the mask on, Rebecca. Ugh. So Hermes thinks that all of these New Yorkers will be back to normal in a couple of weeks, and he promises that he will help, just like you were saying. Percy is surprised at this notion, but Hermes clarifies that he is the messenger of the gods, and it is his duty to hear what the mortals are saying and help them make sense of it all if need be. He will reassure them, and he thinks that they'll go on to say that it was an earthquake or a natural disaster, but anything but the truth. And when he says that final line, Percy can sense that he's got some anger and bitterness behind it. But even though things seem a bit testy, Percy tells Hermes that he owes him an apology. Hermes asks for what, and Percy explains that he thought Hermes was a bad father, and he thought that Hermes abandoned Luke because he knew his future and wasn't going to stop it. Hermes dejectedly replies that he did know his future, and Percy confirms that he knew past the bad stuff. Hermes says yes, and that no one can tamper with fate, not even a god. He believes that things would have been worse if he tried to warn Luke or steer him away from his path.
I thought this was really interesting. Like, the idea of an angry Hermes is kind of curious, because, you've got Disney's Hercules Hermes, which is, just kind of like a goofball.
Sure.
But, like, this guy has got some angst, and just seeing him like angry is like, that seems like a mood for a more serious god. But I guess in this version, he has a lot more depth.
Yeah, I really did like it because it is the frustrating thing where like things are bad and you want to do something about it, and either it's out of your control or in this case, like you are prevented actively from doing something about it. That's really frustrating to feel like I want to change things, but I can't. So it was interesting to hear him explain that. He states that staying silent and distancing himself from Luke was the hardest thing that he's ever done. And I totally get how that would not be easy. Hermes admits that he shouldn't have gotten mad at Annabeth because he knew that she would play a part in his fate. He just thought that maybe she'd be able to save Luke. And Hermes recognized that, well, I can't do it, maybe she can. So when she couldn't do it or didn't do it, he was enraged. And he recognizes now that he should have known better, and he does regret it. So I don't know any other god in these books.
Not king of the gods, but
yeah, the fact that he at least recognizes, oh, I kind of goofed here, my bad. Pretty good to come from a god. Percy tells him that Annabeth did save Luke because, quote, Luke died a hero. He sacrificed himself to kill Kronos.
That's literally true in the technical sense.
He died...
He was the hero of the prophecy.
He died the hero, not a hero. I feel like he died doing something heroic. But I think to say he died a hero feels like a stretch since he was, I don't know, entangled figuratively and then literally with the Lord of Time, head of the Titans, for a couple of years. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll take the win.
I just feel like with this and with the Selena thing too, like you don't just instantly become a hero because you did like one good thing before you beefed it, but I don't know.
I do like fully on board for the like petty vendetta against Luke. But I do like this sentiment that they are, at least Percy and Annabeth, come at this from a position of forgiveness. Mm-hmm. That, when they were looking for the spy, they were like, no, we can't spend any energy having a witch hunt to see like which among us, like that will only tear us apart. Yes, we know there's a spy, but we have to like keep moving without that. And then like with these two people having forgiveness for what led them down this dark path, and at least, having hope that they regret it as they died.
Yeah, I appreciate their approach there. I think it's the after the fact thing where when they are talking about Luke and Selena in the past, they were like, we can't talk about any of the bad stuff. I'm like, wouldn't it be helpful if we didn't just sweep it under the rug? I don't know. It feels like...
I agree with that. I don't know the benefit of silencing anyone from mentioning that Selena was the spy.
Yeah, I think it's okay to have complex thoughts about complex people as opposed to just being like, no, they have to just be one thing or the other. It feels just weird. It's like Star Wars where it's like, you have to be a Sith or you have to be a Jedi, and there's no in between. It's like, I don't know, can't we have people that are kind of in between? Gray area stuff? Anyway, Hermes appreciates Percy's mindset, but he tells Percy that you cannot kill a Titan. He doesn't want Percy to think that Luke actually truly did kill off Kronos.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 indeed.
He's still out there.
Percy, you must understand that if we need to make a villain later on and we run out of ideas, talk about Star Wars.
Yes.
Somehow.
Absolutely him retaining the right to bring Kronos back if the narrative suits it.
Just in case. Percy starts to ask what's going on then, but Hermes cuts him off to say that he doesn't know, but he hopes that Kronos has been blown to dust and scattered far enough apart in the wind that he won't be able to form a consciousness again, let alone a body, but he's not dead. Now, this does hold true with what we know about the gods and the Titans and stuff, so I didn't think that it was like that cheap of a thing, but it is also kind of like, he could come back. Percy asks, what about the other Titans? And Hermes says that they are in hiding. Prometheus sent a list of excuses to Zeus, but he is in hiding. Creos fled, Othrys has crumbled, and Oceanus returned to the deep ocean.
That one kind of gave me chills, because it's like Poseidon is this like ancient god who has a palace in the depths of the ocean, but there's an even more ancient Titan who lives in the even deeper reaches of the ocean. That's just like, ooh.
The deep ocean terrifies me. Yeah. I would rather go to space than the deep ocean. Hermes is upset that his son died believing that he didn't care about him. And he says he'll never forgive himself. That's tough. I can't imagine that. And I don't really know what else Hermes can do, but yeah, it's just a terrible situation to find yourself in. But Percy says to him that years ago, Hermes told him that the hardest thing about being a god is not helping your kids. Hermes also told Percy that you cannot give up on your family no matter how tempting they make it. Hermes asks if Percy thinks that he's a hypocrite now, but Percy says no. Luke loved him, and he realized his fate in the end, so Percy believes that Luke understood why Hermes couldn't help him. And I think this is pretty legit. I think there's a good chance that Luke recognized that, but it's not necessarily confirmed.
Right. Did Percy know that Luke loved Hermes?
So
here's like a bit of a stretch.
Here's the next part. Initially, I was like, yeah, I get it. And then Percy keeps going. Hermes thinks it's too late now. Percy tells him to honor Luke by treating his other children well, which I think is a nice approach. What else can you do but that? Then Percy says all of the gods should do this. Hermes says that they'll try, but the gods don't have a great track record of oath-keeping because they become forgetful. Percy says that they can change. Hermes laughs at the notion of the gods changing their ways after 3,000 years of the same. Only 3,000?
I kind of bumped on that because they swore on the river Styx. Is that not magically binding, like an unbreakable vow? Are they allowed to break an oath on the Styx?
Yeah, I mean, technically, no. It is kind of like a vague promise, though. It is kind of like,
maybe it's not
nice to them.
Quite as enforceable.
Yeah, it's not necessarily strict technicality. I was bumping more on the 3,000 years. I don't know, so I guess this world, the gods were invented in 1000 BC, is what we're establishing here in the lore.
Any ancient Greek historians? Does that check out that timeline?
I'll ask Dr. Moya. I'll ask Rachel Elizabeth there. No, Rachel Elizabeth there. I'll ask Red. I said Red because Red is the person who I have on when Dr. Moya is busy. And then I was like, don't say Red. That's what you call Rachel Elizabeth there in your notes. So say Rachel Elizabeth there. But she's not a real human. The jumps, they were there.
Yeah, now you're all caught up.
Anyway, Percy believes that they can change. Hermes is stunned and asks Percy if he truly believes that Luke still loved him after all that went down. And Percy says he's sure of it, as if he talked to Luke about this. You are not sure. You are not sure of this. You are lying to Hermes.
Yeah, that's at this point, that's a lie.
Yeah, and it could be one of those things where you say literally, but you don't mean literally. But you are not certain. You would hope so, and you're believing this, but you also haven't had a conversation with Luke not centered around, I want to kill you, oh, I'm cool, I want to kill you too. They haven't had a normal conversation in 4 years. How does he know what Luke is like? So I don't know that he's sure. Now, Hermes says that he will give Percy a list of his children. There's a boy in Wisconsin, so close to having this chapter be in the Wisconsin live show from last night. Oh, wow. Didn't know.
Such feelings.
Oh, I know, so strong. Archie's curds are squeakier here. So there's a boy in Wisconsin, there's 2 girls in Los Angeles, plus a few others, and he asks Percy if he will ensure that they arrive at Camp Half-Blood safely. Why is he delegating this task to Percy Jackson? Shouldn't he do this himself?
Yeah, I felt like we just had this whole thing where you guys are going to do this.
Uh-huh. They are supposed to keep this oath, and 5 minutes have gone by, and he's like, oh my God, can you do this? Percy agrees to do it. George and Martha look happy. Hermes then says, Percy Jackson, you might just teach us a thing or two. Now there is another god waiting for Percy before he leaves, and it's Athena. Percy is worried, obviously. She tells him that he will stay mortal, and he says, yes, ma'am. She wants to know his reasons for deciding to stay mortal, and he says he just wants to be a normal guy. She asks what about her daughter, and he says he couldn't leave her, and then quickly adds, or Grover, and then Athena cuts him off. Yes! She cuts him off and says, spare me, which is fantastic. So good. She then steps closer and says that she once told Percy he would destroy the world in order to save a friend, and she admits that she appears to be wrong since he saved his friends and the world, and she will give him the benefit of the doubt going forward, but she wants him not to screw up. She then erupts into a column of fire to prove a point, and then burns the front of his shirt.
Roasted.
Absolutely. Ha ha ha. Percy then gets to the elevator, and Annabeth immediately asks him why he smells like smoke. Percy says,
"Tell me about it."
He says, long story, and they head down. Like, how does she not see, or how does she not see/feel the heat from the column of fire?
I guess the elevator's around a corner. I mean,
maybe. Yeah, she's down a hallway, and I just feel like, what else is there besides the elevator in the middle of the sky, and then your friend/boyfriend that you're waiting for? So Percy says, long story, and then they head down to the ground floor in silence. The music in the elevator is rough, according to Percy Jackson. He describes it as, quote, Neil Diamond or something. I'm not well-versed in Neil Diamond. Is there any sort of song of his that would make sense to be in an elevator, kind of like how they had Staying Alive in the one book when they were going up the elevator? Is there any sort of Neil Diamond song? He sings Sweet Caroline, right? No? Yeah. That's like, I think, the only Neil Diamond song I know.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Cool. I'm going to get some angry emails from Neil Diamond fans. If your parents figure out how to work an email address,
they can forward them to Rick Riordan.
Zoop. Percy regrets not asking for better elevator music in his wish, which I think is fantastic. When they do finally reach the lobby, they come upon Paul and Sally arguing with the security guard who has returned to his post. But then Sally sees Percy, shouts his name, and gives him an enormous hug. She was relieved at the sight of the blue building, but she was concerned by how long it took for him to come down from Olympus. Percy assures her that he is okay. Annabeth compliments Paul's swordsmanship. He tries to brush it off, and he asks if he can see the 600th floor. Sally says that it's not for mortals, and what really matters is that they are all safe. And I was a little...
She says that right after begging the security guard to let her up.
Ah!
Now she remembers.
I was a little perturbed. Just the way that Paul was very fascinated with it, I was just a little worried. I was like, Paul, don't get... I'm just always worried that he might...
Mike...
don't stay with me, Paul. Stay with me here. Narrator Percy says, I was about to relax, and I knew it. I knew we couldn't have 4 consecutive chapters of things going well. So he says he was about to relax. He says everything felt perfect, but then Nico rushes up and says that he just ran into Rachel Elizabeth Dare on 32nd Street. Annabeth asks what she's done now. Nico says it's not what she has done, but where she is going. And he told her that she would die if she tried to do it, whatever it is, and she insisted upon doing it. She took blackjack, and then it wrote, oh, jacked like that. And I was upset because I wanted super buff mega blackjack.
Yeah, never forget.
Never forget the potential. Could have had giga blackjack. Percy is very upset because Rachel Elizabeth Dare took his Pegasus.
I love that, yeah.
Nico says that she is headed to Camp Half-Blood. Of course she is. She's trying to do the whole prophecy thing. That's the end of chapter 21. Let's get right into chapter 22, which is called I Am Dumped. And I wrote on my notes, wait, didn't this already happen? Because I feel like one of the chapters might have been called that he got dumped when Rachel Elizabeth Dare dumped him.
I reread just these chapters for this, and I was like, oh, that's a literal title, because I remembered Rachel having the conversation that friend zoned Percy, that, I'm not actually into you, it's just your whole Greek thing. But then I remembered that happened in chapter 18, so I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
This may be something else.
Yeah, so I was very worried, and I just wrote in my notes, oh no, Annabeth, no, come on. I'm gonna have to will this into being a thing that's good. Dumped, ... dump, ... He ends up in a dumpster at some point. IDK, I just need everything to be okay, in all caps. I just really needed this to somehow be positive. Spoiler alert, it is okay. Narrator Percy opens this chapter with, nobody steals my Pegasus.
Do you think he would have said that if it was Annabeth stealing his Pegasus?
Ooh, interesting. Probably not. I did think it was fascinating, though. This is the second time he said it. It was at the end of the previous chapter and the beginning of this chapter, that he is calling Blackjack his Pegasus. And I just want to make sure Blackjack's okay with this, too. Are they Facebook official? Is it, I am yours, you are mine?
It's kind of inherited. His dad is a god of horses, so he gets to claim at least one.
Yeah. I wonder if Guido was upset or Pork Pie was bummed, man. But I get it. It's always the two of them. Percy is torn between being angry, amazed, and worried. Annabeth wonders what in tarnation Rachel Elizabeth Dare was thinking. Percy thinks that he knows exactly what she has in mind, and he is dreading it being true.
How thrilled do you think Annabeth is that Percy's also mad at Rachel right now?
Oh, there is nothing that can form a stronger bond than mutual hatred of the same person. That is truly how friendships are formed. So he's worried. Traffic is atrocious, so cabs are out of question. All of the Pegasi are gone, so they're not an option. The party ponies fled, along with most of New York's supply of root beer, so they're out of the picture. So they start to run.
Nico is just tired.
Nico is exhausted, but they just start to run. And at this point in time, they don't say where they are running. So I wrote on my notes, you are the god of the sea. Get in the water, Percy Jackson, and figure something out.
Will you give him a second?
I probably should have given him a second, because I figured he was just going to run to some mode of public transit or something, get on the LIRR, I don't know. But I was very frustrated. Annabeth is afraid that Peleus will eat Rachel Elizabeth Dare, and Percy realizes, oh, I didn't think of that. I knew the mist wouldn't work on her properly so that she would be able to find the camp, but I thought the magical boundary would just be like a force field and she couldn't get in. I didn't realize that Peleus might walk up and take a big chomp out of Rachel Elizabeth Dare.
I don't think Annabeth was afraid that would happen. She just stated that it might.
Sure. Yeah, I should write my notes here. Percy asks Nico if he can summon some skeleton horses. Nico says he is so exhausted he couldn't even summon a dog bone. And then we learn they are not just running anywhere. They are running specifically to the East River. So they are going to do something water-based. Percy notes that the water is still polluted despite the sand dollar move that he did. Very clear that this book was written in 2010 because now the East River is pretty fine. I still wouldn't recommend swimming in it for a fun time, but we went kayaking in it and it's perfectly clean. And I'm pretty sure there's scientific articles that are it's okay. They stopped polluting and throwing dead bodies in it. You can swim there.
Will you please stop telling people that they will mutate in our lake, in our river?
Yeah, look, we went kayaking. My new tail is very useful. Now, Percy is worried about the pollution in the water, so he feels bad about doing this, but he lets out a big whistle and summons some hippocampi. And I'm very excited the rainbow's back in the picture. Oh, so elated. I feel in the last episode or the one prior, I was wondering, man, we got to get Rainbow back. So I'm glad that Rainbow is back in the mix. Rainbow is not thrilled about being in this polluted water, but Rainbow is hyped to hear the good news about Tyson's new position, which is very exciting. Nico, Annabeth, and Percy get on these hippocampi, and they zip across the water. They go under the Throg's Neck Bridge and into the Long Island Sound. When they arrive at Camp Half-Blood, Argus is glaring at them. That's a lot of glares. That is probably the most glaring you could be on the receiving end of. giving them lots of dirty looks, and Percy asks if Rachel Elizabeth Dare is here. Argus nods. Annabeth asks if everything is okay. Argus shakes his head. So that's a big whoop. Now, yeah, I'm in ope country. I love ope. Ope is good. I use ope a lot. I am not from the Midwest. I'm not from even close here. I like ope. OPE is the official spelling, right? Not OHP, right?
Just like as an interjection?
Yeah, just be like, oh. When I make a goof of sorts, I just love it. Oh, it's good. It's really good. I'm adopting that. Will I call soda pop? No. Percy finds it strange to be back at Camp Half-Blood and finds that everything is peaceful. It is mostly empty, but it's calm. But things are not great at the big house. Green light emits from the windows, and Percy has some worrisome flashbacks to May Castellan. How could you not? The magical mist begins to swirl around the yard. Chiron is laying in a stretcher by the volleyball pit with satyrs tending to him, and Blackjack is cantering? Do you know horse stuff? I don't know enough horse stuff.
I know it's like the step above trotting is like, it's like a basic walk. A canter is like a jog, and then like a gallop is like a run.
Gotcha. All right, there were some horse people in the crowd that were like, yeah. So Blackjack is cantering nervously in the grass. And once Blackjack sees Percy, he says, "Don't blame me, boss. The weird girl made me do it." I love it. I love it.
Classic.
So good. Rachel Elizabeth Dare is at the base of the porch steps with her arms straight up like she's calling for a pass. Annabeth asks what she's up to and how she got past the barriers, and a satyr glares at Blackjack like it's Blackjack's fault. Blackjack did just establish, not my fault. A satyr glares at Blackjack.
It is.
We didn't see the conversation. A satyr glares at Blackjack and explains that Rachel Elizabeth Dare flew past the defenses. Percy calls out her name and tries to rush towards her, but the satyrs stop him. Chiron agrees with their decision to stop him, wincing in pain, but explaining that Percy cannot interrupt the process. Percy yells, "I thought you explained things to her." Chiron says that he did, and that he invited her here, which I found very surprising. I wasn't too surprised when Rachel Elizabeth Dare decided to do this, but hearing that Chiron sent out the invitation, I found to be very surprising. And I don't know if they really kind of get into the invitation of it all. I guess aside from him understanding what's happening based on her conversation with Hestia and him realizing it's worth it, but I did find him going that next step to be shocking.
Do you think that it's just Percy that Chiron withholds plot information from?
Ooh.
And everyone else, he's like, okay, so here's the deal. There's this old mummy in our attic.
I would imagine that he probably does it for more folks, but I think he does it for Percy, not only because he's the main character and this is a book series, but I do think also because Percy was the subject of the great prophecy, Chiron, his reasoning in the past was, you have so much on your plate that I was kind of trying to not make you feel like a super downer about everything and be down in the dumps and have so much pressure. So I think he probably does it for Percy more than anyone, but I could see him still doing it for some other people. We'll have to see if Chiron is a factor in later books or any of the spin-off ones, if there's anything not from Percy's perspective, but yeah, it would be interesting. It would be very funny if it was only for Percy and everyone else knows. I mean, and it could be, because we'll see something later in the chapter where everyone in the camp knows something that Percy and Annabeth don't know. And it would be funny if Chiron was the reason that everybody knew that piece of information. We'll get into that
He's such
later.
a gossip.
Did you guys hear? Yeah. So he invited Rachel Elizabeth Dare here. That makes Percy furious. He cites that Chiron said he wouldn't let anyone try this again, and Chiron levels with Percy that he knows what he said. He agrees, yes, I did say this, but I was wrong. He says that Rachel Elizabeth Dare saw a vision in regards to the curse of Hades, and she thinks that it is now lifted. She convinced Chiron that she deserves a chance. Percy wonders, what if the curse hasn't been lifted yet? Asking if she will go mad in that case. And I think that is valid, because if the only concern, because Percy even says, what if Hades hasn't gotten around to it yet? If the only concern is maybe Hades hasn't done it yet, why don't they just like wait till tomorrow? You know, is there a reason, aside from making the end of the book more interesting, that Rachel Elizabeth Dare has to do this right here and now?
I would guess that like she's been having a rough time of it and like hiding it from him, but like she doesn't want to wait any longer. She's like, her mind can't take any more of this.
That makes sense, because it does seem like recently she's had more and more of these.
Yeah, it's ramping up really fast.
Yeah, because on Olympus, she was just saying stuff. She was saying, oh, I had the thing that I wrote on the beach. Then also there's the thing, you're not the hero. I don't know what it means. There's going to be a trick. You're right. So maybe she was just like, please, for my own well-being, make the voices stop. Yeah, I get it. So Percy is still concerned. The mist then circles Rachel Elizabeth Dare, and she begins to shiver as if she's going into shock. Percy shouts for her to stop. He pushes through the satyrs and runs towards her. But when he gets about 10 feet away, he is sent flying backwards as if he ran into a giant invisible beach ball. Rachel Elizabeth Dare, in a voice that sounds distant, assures Percy that everything is okay, and this is the reason why she came back to camp. Percy says that she will be destroyed. Rachel Elizabeth Dare shakes her head and says this is where she belongs, and she finally understands why. Percy thinks that this sounds way too much like what May said. The house then rumbles, the doors fling open, green light rushes out, as does the smell of snakes, which I did not see coming. But then the mist takes the form of hundreds of snakes, and then the oracle walks out the door. And narrator Percy says, she looked even worse than usual, which is saying a lot.
I don't think it walked. I think the mummy just kind of floats.
Okay. Her hair is falling out in clumps. Her skin is crackling like the seat of a worn-out bus. What a visual.
So
that is
specific.
such
Yeah.
a good turn of phrase. I think this is my favorite thing Rick has written in the whole book, because that is hard to describe, but I also know exactly what he's talking about. The crackling leather brown/green/ what color is its seat?
With like the foam
With
coming out, yeah.
the foam's coming out and the little string, like whatever that is. It was clear as day. This was fantastic. Now, this aside, her eyes also then just look out in this 1,000-yard stare, and Percy fears that she's being drawn straight to Rachel Elizabeth Dare. Rachel Elizabeth Dare outstretches her arms and looks confident. She says, "You've waited too long, but I'm here now." The sun then burns brighter, and Apollo appears on the porch. Percy calls him by name, but then Apollo winks and puts a finger to his lips. Which is a great vibe, and I'm sure Percy hated that.
Yeah, it is a little creepy.
He then turns to Rachel Elizabeth Dare and tells her that she has the gift of prophecy, but it is also a curse. He makes sure that she wants to do this. She confirms, saying that it is her destiny. He asks if she accepts the risk. She says that she does, so he allows her to proceed. Rachel Elizabeth Dare closes her eyes and says, quote, "I accept this role. I pledge myself to Apollo, god of oracles. I open my eyes to the future and embrace the past. I accept the spirit of Delphi, voice of the gods, speaker of riddles, seer of fate." Did someone give her this script?
I think Percy asked the same thing of where she was getting those words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did she answer? Did I miss this?
No, he just says it came out of the mist.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. I guess I was just imagining with the initiation, like Apollo.
Pulling out an index card.
Oh, either that or Apollo going, "Repeat after me. I accept this role. I accept this role. I pledge myself to Apollo. I pledge myself to Apollo." But she just rattled it off. Boom.
It's a pretty impressive resume, or just headline there.
Yeah, to say that you are pledged to Apollo, god of oracles, and then I accept spirit of Delphi, voice of the gods, speaker of riddles, seer of fate. Speaker of riddles, I think, is fun. I'm interested, is she just going to become a big riddle fan now? There's two twins at a fork in the road, and one always tells you the truth. The mist then thickens, and a huge tendril of smoke emits from the oracle's mouth and forms a python-like shape that slithers down the steps and goes towards Rachel Elizabeth Dare's feet, curling around them. The mummy then dissolves into dust, and mist envelops Rachel Elizabeth Dare in a column. The mist clears, and Rachel Elizabeth Dare collapses into the fetal position. Annabeth! What? Annabeth! Nico and Percy rush toward her. Very shocked. Big turn for Annabeth. But Apollo stops them because this is the most delicate part of the process. Percy demands to know what is going on. Apollo says that the spirit will either take hold or it won't. Annabeth asks what happens if it doesn't. Apollo says, 5 syllables. That would be real bad. And then I did look back at everything that he said previously to make sure that his last 2 quotes weren't 5 syllables and then 7 syllables. And they were not. So he was just being haiku-ish in this little quote here.
Yeah, I guess he was starting a new one.
Yeah. Oh, I should have looked at the next two things he said. Percy ignores Apollo's warning and runs over to Rachel Elizabeth Dare. She opens her eyes and says, "Percy." He asks her if she's okay. She tries to sit, but her head hurts too much. Nico explains to her that her life aura almost completely drained. He could see her dying. She says that she's okay, but she asks to be helped up because the visions are disorienting. Percy asks if she's positive that she's all right, and then Apollo floats down from the porch and introduces her as the new Oracle of Delphi. Annabeth says, "You're kidding."
The new what now?
Yeah. And look, she's staying petty. You got to respect it.
I have to get my quests from her?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, man, that'll be fun. That'll be really fun. Rachel Elizabeth Dare admits that it is a shock to her as well, but it's her fate. She saw it in New York, and she simply knew that she was born with true sight because she was meant to become the Oracle. Percy asks if that means she can tell the future now. She corrects that she cannot do it all the time, but there are visions and words and images in her mind. She starts to say, when someone asks me a question, oh no, and then Apollo says, "It's beginning." Which I think is the perfect cliffhanger for us to go to intermission. Now, if you're listening to the podcast after the fact, you will hear the mid-roll break, the Cashed Olympian. So let's all hear live say goodbye to the podcast people. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to the Cashed Olympian, the penultimate Cashed Olympian, the second to last one. I've got some updates for the show. First, let's talk schedule. So next week will be our final episode about the main series of books. Then the following 2 episodes will be about the first movie. Yeah, that one. And then the episode after that will be about Rick Riordan's emails to Chris Columbus and all the other things about the movie. So sort of the rest of the stuff and the cultural phenomenon that was the first Percy Jackson and the Olympians: the Lightning Thief movie. At some point in December, I'm probably going to take an off week just because I haven't taken one in quite some time, and the holidays, I'm just going to figure out what makes the most sense there. I will, of course, talk about it in the mid-roll break of a future episode. And as always, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/about to see what we are covering in the next month. So I'll update it there as well. There will be a mythology episode with Dr. Moya as well. That's just going to come a little bit later because of scheduling with the very busy Dr. Moya. So we will do that probably after we do the Lightning Thief stuff. And also the TV show is going to determine the schedule, whether or not the strike is complete. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. In addition to show stuff, if you want to see live shows of the Newest Olympian, we have 4 shows at the end of this year. We've got 4 shows all in Texas. We're going to be in Dallas and then Austin and then San Antonio and then Houston. You can get tickets to all those shows at thenewestolympian.com/live. Some of them will be about the Sea of Monsters movie, and I'm not sure for the rest of them, but I do know Stephen Parra will be the guest for the San Antonio show. So all you Parra people, come on through to the San Antonio show. In regards to this episode, a note about something I'm going to say in the future. I'm going to thank, in air quotes, Hollis for helping at the merch table. Talus's name is pronounced Talus. And when I asked how to pronounce Talus's name at the show, I nailed it. And then I got on stage and I got nervous because for some reason I was like, oh, it's clearly pronounced like this. I don't know why I switched, but thank you, Talus, for running the merch table. You did a fantastic job. Sorry I butchered your name live on stage. I'm correcting it here on the podcast, which goes out to more people. So I hope it makes up for it. Speaking of people who have helped the podcast, I would like to thank the folks who have supported us on Patreon at any point in time. And I want to thank 50 more of the folks who have supported us recently. We are almost done with the backlog of people that came through when we did the stream. The wonderful backlog. Love a backlog. But as always, we limit this to 50 people per episode so the mid-roll doesn't get too long. But shout out to the next 50 folks who have supported recently. Shout out to our newest Mega God tier patron, Maddie White. Shout out to our newest Super God tier patron, Dalu Klein. Shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Lauren, Mara Bean, Lynn Berglund, The Puffin Man and his wife, Tana Magenti, Jace Gunther, Monster Donut franchisee, Lillian Hodge, Emily McInnes, and one whose name is, I can't pronounce this one, but I would never say that for someone's name. I would just fight through and do my best and hope that they would correct me if I got it wrong. But shout out to that person who made their name I can't pronounce this one. And shout out to our newest demigod tier patrons, Monique, Kristen Taylor, Lanayathan, Ajaya Hernandez, Giselle, Hinojosa, Tallulah Price, Emma Liss, Taylor, Lilith Blade, Hope Spinello, Watier Gal, We Get It, Mike Took Latin in High School, all one word, Anna, Sina Brune, Woeful Seminarian, The Rogues, Emily, Katie Lindenmayer, M, Whitney Bain, Miko Pussy, Cam C. Wilcox, Debix, Chelsea Neat, Busy Lurker, Ella Margaret, Christopher Helmas, Sarit Pearl, That Was a Movie, Hannah, Tima, Mikal, Sol K, Ellie Rusu, Isabella DeStefano, Juno is her name, but child of Aphrodite, WTF, and Rachel. Also, I'd like to do a name correction for Winona Anderson, who has now changed their patron name to Hi Barb and Joel. So, Mom and Dad, if you're listening to the mid-roll break, hi. Thank you all so much for your support. May Hermes bless you that if you want to run a marathon, you can just run a marathon. The New York Marathon happened today, and maybe in other places it happened as well. So hopefully Hermes can empower you to run a marathon if you want to do that. Now, if you're all caught up in the News Olympian and you're looking for a new podcast to listen to, I make a whole bunch of podcasts, and I think they're very good. One of the ones I think you might enjoy is called Modern Muckraker. It's very different than this show, but still very funny. It is a scripted show where I played a character who is an investigative journalist trying to conduct the world's most important research and share it with the world. But in actuality, the questions we answer on the show are things such as, is the budget of East High School realistic for a public school in Albuquerque, New Mexico? Or how many IHOP locations can you visit and eat free pancakes at during one National Free Pancake Day? It's very funny. It's very silly. I worked with a very talented team to make it all, and you can listen to the 4 episodes of season 1 at modernmuck.com or by searching wherever you get your podcasts for Modern Muckraker. Now, before we wrap up here, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, and the new sponsors we're getting in for the end of the year are pretty sweet. Others of them won't. The ones that are not read by me are inserted locally, so if you live in Chile, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Spanish. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This episode of The Newest Olympian is brought to you by Uncommon Goods. Now, Sally Jackson has it pretty easy for Percy Jackson, getting him amazing gifts around the holidays or his birthday. You just get him something blue, cook him some blue food, easy peasy. But maybe the people in your life, you don't have such an easy gift to get them. You want to get something really fun and unique and cool. Where could you get those types of gifts? You could get them with Uncommon Goods. Uncommon Goods is a wonderful place to get all sorts of unique and often customizable gifts. They have home gifts, they have kitchen and bar gifts, they have jewelry, they have gifts for kids, they have fun gifts, they have experiences, they have even corporate gifts if you're someone's boss. They've got a whole bunch of stuff that you can get, and I've gotten some stuff recently. If you are my parents or Kelly's aunt, skip ahead. We got my parents a custom ornament that they are going to love, and they're big ornament people, so this is perfect. They'll put it on their tree right after they open it. And then we got Kelly's aunt a mug. She loves a good mug, and we got her a good mug at Uncommon Goods. Now, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Often these products are made in small batches, so that is A, cool, but B, you might want to shop quickly before they sell out with the holiday season upcoming. And on top of all of this, with each purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $2.5 million to date here in November 2023, and that rules so hard. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/TNO. That's uncommongoods.com/TNO for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary. So if you want to get a gift that's out of the ordinary, go to uncommongoods.com/TNO now. This episode of The Newest Olympian is brought to you by Factor. Now, the holiday season is approaching. The holiday season is busy. The holiday season might be a time where you're not able to cook your own meals and make them healthy like you want them to be. Maybe you're in a bit of a rush. Well, if you want to still have some healthy meals, but you don't necessarily have the time to cook them, Factor is here to help you. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, and it can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered directly to your door. And if you are incredibly in a rush, fear not, because Factor has Lunch to Go, which are effortless, wholesome meals like grain bowls and salad toppers that are ready to eat whenever you are on the go. No microwave required. I've got a box on the way from Factor, and let me just read you how incredible everything sounds. I'm going to be eating these with an ear-to-ear smile on whilst chewing. Jalapeno lime cheddar chicken with spicy cilantro cauliflower rice, spinach and mushroom chicken thighs with creamy Parmesan and white wine sauce, green pepper and beef casserole with Parmesan broccoli, grits, and green beans, chipotle rub pork chop with roasted cabbage and red bell pepper fondue, roasted veggie and pesto tortellini with roasted green beans, and Caribbean spiced tofu with black beans, rice, mango salsa, and coconut jerk sauce. Get a napkin. Your mouth is watering. Mine is. I'm not exaggerating. So if this sounds interesting to you, head to factormeals.com/OlympianStar50 and use code OlympianStar50 to get 50% off. That's code OlympianStar50 at factormeals.com/OlympianStar50 to get 50% off. So if you are in a rush this holiday season, but you're still looking to have some nice quality meals, check out Factor today.
All right. Hope everyone had a good intermission. I missed you all so dearly. Aww. Let's continue our discussion of this chapter of Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian. Now, Percy asked Rachel Elizabeth Dare, does this mean you can tell the future? And then she was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no. And then Apollo said, it's beginning. Rachel Elizabeth Dare doubles over in pain and then stands straight up and with glowing green eyes says in a tripled voice, 7 half-bloods shall answer the call. To storm or fire the world must fall. An oath to keep with a final breath, and foes bear arms to the doors of death. And I wrote in my notes, what, Heroes of Olympus already?
No, this probably won't come up again.
Yeah, it's just flavor text. It's nothing of importance. So yeah, I found that to be very fascinating. I mean, it's smart on Uncle Rick to have things planned for the sequel before you finish the 5th one, yeah? I shouldn't say, yeah, you're not going to tell me anything. Otherwise, your trapdoor would activate. Now,
in the hypothetical scenario where this is followed up on, do you have any guesses or predictions on what this prophecy, the next great prophecy, might mean?
My guess would just be, I do know, so this isn't like me being a genius. I do know that the Heroes of Olympus series is centered around Percy, Annabeth, and some other people that do heroic things on Olympus, I guess. So I would guess.
Context clues.
Yeah. Those titles, they can just be so descriptive. I would guess that we've got 5 new friends. Or, because Grover is not a half-blood, Tyson not a half-blood, Thalia, I don't think, would be, maybe. So we'll have new friends that bring us up to 7, and there's something bad that's going to happen, and they got to do stuff. I already did a big prediction hole of what I think is going to go down. That was in the Q&A of a previous episode, so podcast-wise, you've already heard that. Audience-wise, you'll get there in a couple of months. Rachel Elizabeth Dare collapses at the final word of this prophecy. Nico and Percy catch her, and they can feel that her skin is hot. She says that she's okay. Percy asks, what was all that? Apollo states that he believes it's the next great prophecy, which I thought, whoa, and then at that point was thinking, okay, probably the plot line for the Heroes of Olympus. Percy asks what it means. Rachel Elizabeth Dare says that she can't even recall what she just said, so how is she supposed to know what this could mean? Apollo explains that the spirit will speak through Rachel Elizabeth Dare from time to time, but otherwise Rachel Elizabeth Dare will be basically normal. He states that there's no sense in badgering her with questions, even after a big reveal such as this, because she won't be able to answer them. Percy is flustered. Apollo tells him not to worry about it because the last great prophecy took 70 years to complete, so this may not even take place during his lifetime.
Could be.
Could be. Yeah, I highly doubt it.
Uncle Rick playing the long game.
Yeah, he's going to write 70 years worth of books. It'd be wild if the Heroes of Olympus is just them doing normal stuff for 5 straight books. But yeah, I highly doubt that that's not going to be during Percy Jackson's lifetime.
Yeah. I really liked this part, just how the Hades plot dovetailed into Rachel becoming the next Oracle and then having this next prophecy. I guess it was only in this book that we learned about the curse of Hades, right. Being what it is that affected the Oracle. But I feel like that tension of Hades being the less than of the big 3, has been seeded since the first book. So it does feel like kind of a big resolution of the series.
Yeah, I think it is really nice. I very much enjoyed this portion of the chapter, for sure. Percy replies to Apollo, baby, but it didn't sound so good. Didn't sound great there, Percy. Apollo agrees that it did not sound ideal, and that means Rachel Elizabeth Dare is going to be a top-notch Oracle.
He's so happy.
He's like, oh, she's going to be great. He says that she needs to rest now. Rachel Elizabeth Dare apologizes for not revealing all of the information to Percy on Olympus, but she worried that he wouldn't understand the calling. And I think that's probably the correct decision from Rachel Elizabeth Dare, not the time and place. Percy admits that He still doesn't truly understand it, but he is happy for her nonetheless. She smiles and notes that happy may not be the right word. She worries about how challenging it will all be, and then she worries about her family. Percy asks if she's still going to go to Clarion Academy, and Rachel Elizabeth Dare says that she made a promise and she's going to stick with it. And if her dad makes her go through with this, he's already worse than the worst person that he was established to be. Clearly, your daughter was flustered and in a tough spot and only made this promise to you in desperation. And if you actually make your daughter go to the school because of this, my expectations for destroy the world landlord Jones like we're already the floor. But if he digs underneath the ground, I will be livid with Mr. Elizabeth Dare.
You really expect this guy to not take like a business negotiation seriously?
Yeah, I guess when I feel like I had predicted like this coming up, and I thought there's the smallest sliver that he proves to be not the worst person ever, and he goes, "No, Rachel, like you don't actually have to do it." But based on this phrasing, it does seem to kind of set up like, "Hey, Rachel, what are you going to be doing during the next series?" And I'm worried, and I'm preemptively getting ready to be super mad at Mr. Dare. Doesn't seem like he's going to have that nice, cool arc I thought was a slight chance.
Well, I think he expected her to go there anyway. So this deal was more like a convenience to get her to like agree to go, but she never really had a choice. She was always going.
So he really was super crappy the whole time. Yeah, okay. I don't know why I had any sort of hope for Landlord Jones. So Apollo insists that she get some sleep, and then turns to Chiron and checks that the attic is no longer the best place for the Oracle, and Chiron agrees. He says that Rachel Elizabeth Dare can use the big house's guest room for now until they've given the matter some more thought. Apollo suggests a cave in the hills with torches and a big purple curtain over the entrance for peak mysterious vibes. But the inside has a game room and a home theater system.
I want one. Yeah. It's such a vibe.
It is quite the vibe. Chiron clears his throat to get Apollo to stop listing all of these things, and Apollo asks what's wrong with it. Rachel Elizabeth Dare then gives Percy a kiss on the cheek. "Read the room, Rachel. Annabeth's right there. Come on." And then whispers, "Goodbye, Percy. And I don't have to see the future to tell you what to do now, do I?" And then shoots him a look more piercing than the glowing green eyes from a couple of seconds ago. Percy blushes and says no. She says good, and then she follows Apollo into the big house. I was wondering, because they were saying they're going to have to table this decision until later, is Rachel Elizabeth Dare going to get like her own tiny little cabin in the camp? I would be interested to see what her housing situation becomes. Oh. No, indeed. Later that day, campers begin to trickle in from New York, the wounded are tended to, and the dead are given proper burial rites. Selena's shroud is hot pink, and, in a very MGMT voice, it's embroidered with an electric spear. Ares and Apollo cabins claimed her as a hero jointly, and they lit the shroud together. And I'm still confused as to why everyone is just okay with this, and nobody is talking about what actually went down, but I don't know. It is what it is. Narrator Percy says, no one mentioned the word spy. And I'm thinking, why not?
I mean, they would all be dead if she didn't, like, convince the Ares cabin to, or I guess trick the Ares cabin.
Yeah, but also more people would be alive if she wasn't the spy for a couple of years.
Well, yeah, also that.
Narrator Percy continues about this. That secret burned to ashes as the designer perfume smoke drifted into the sky. And I don't know. I just feel like, as I said earlier, that her story could be some sort of a warning. I think it is okay to have Selena live in a space where we liked her as a friend. We appreciate what she did in the end. What she did with the Ares cabin was huge and brave, and defeating or helping to defeat the Draken was fantastic. But also, she did do this bad thing, and we should probably talk about it. I'm just very anti-sweeping things under the rug, and that's what this feels like.
I wonder if we would have liked her story a little bit more if it didn't involve the train wrecking of Clarice's character progression.
Yeah. I think that might also be part of my anger towards the situation is basically, as you're alluding to, Clarice just became a vessel for the Selena plotline, and we lost all of that cool character development and growth, and her arc is just like not completed. And Yeah, maybe if it was done differently where the Selena stuff was built upon earlier, but it just felt like starting with the Demigod files. It's like, hey, we actually kind of care about Selena now.
She has a last name.
Yeah, she had a last name in the first one. But yeah, they paid her some more attention. And yeah, it just did feel very quick, and it felt like the cost of her gaining more importance and having something added to the story to make her being the spy more of a gut punch, I think that came at the cost of Clarice, and that makes me frustrated. Ethan gets a shroud, one of black silk and a logo of crossed swords under a set of scales. Narrator Percy thinks that he has paid a lot more than an eye, but the minor gods will now get the respect that they deserve. Dinner is pretty chill, the highlight of dinner being Juniper excitedly yelping Grover's name and giving him a flying tackle hug.
Do you think you owe anyone an apology?
Look. If Juniper wanted me not to be suspicious of her, she shouldn't have not been around and then all of a sudden been around and dating Grover. And then like the first thing she says is, oh yeah, I knew about the entrance to the labyrinth, but I didn't tell anyone. I know Luke was doing it. Yeah. I know Luke was going there, but he's hot, so I didn't think anything of it. That's super suspicious.
I mean, he was really hot.
Yeah.
I also like to point out that the little line here says, the only highlight was Juniper, the tree nymph, because Uncle Rick expected that none of us had been paying attention to Juniper this whole time and needed to be reminded who she even was.
I was ready to be disappointed. Now everyone cheers. Grover and Juniper take a moonlit walk along the beach, which makes Percy happy, but then he thinks back to Beckendorf and Selena, and that makes him sad. I am only sad for Beckendorf. Mrs. O'Leary is happily eating everyone's table scraps. Nico sits at the main table with Chiron and Mr. D, and everyone congratulates him and compliments him on a job well done. I think that's great. I love him being embraced. Narrator Percy about this says, hey, show up with an army of undead warriors to save the day, and suddenly you're everybody's best friend. Dinner begins to wind down, so some folks go to a sing-along, others go to bed. Percy sits at the Poseidon table alone and watches the moonlight on the water. He can still see Grover and Juniper in the distance. And then Annabeth slides next to Percy and wishes him a happy birthday. And she has a misshapen cupcake with blue icing. He's confused, and she confirms, it is August 18th, and that is your birthday, right? Which is in 8 days at the time of recording. Woo!
I was kind of surprised by this, too. I remember when I was reading it, I was like, oh yeah, his birthday was like kind of a big deal here.
Right. I completely forgot about it, just like Percy did. And yeah, it's funny because
I guess he was busy.
His whole thing was like, this is going to happen on your birthday. And they said it for 5 straight books. And then even when this brought up, I was like, oh yeah, huh? I completely forgot as well. Percy realizes that Annabeth is right. He hadn't even thought of it. And he did turn 16 that morning, the same morning that he made his big choice. She tells him to make a wish. He asks if she made the cupcake herself. She says that Tyson helped, and he says, that explains why it looks like a chocolate brick with extra blue cement. Okay, Percy Hollywood, who's now apparently an expert baker. Oh, it's got a bit of a soggy bottom, and it looks underdone.
Yeah, I didn't think this was a really good look for him.
Right, and especially whatever he's doing, I guess he's like kind of making fun of Tyson, but like, Tyson's doing his best. He's always doing his best. And he's like checking like, did you do this? No, somebody else helped. Oh, now I can dunk on this. Like maybe just be like, thank you for the cupcake. But anyway, Annabeth laughs, so it's okay. Percy thinks and then blows out the candle. What did you wish for, Percy? Tell us your wish.
Tell us.
Tell us. We're your friend. You tell us everything as the narrator, except for what the plan was with Nico. But aside from that, you tell us everything. What did you wish for? They split the cupcake.
I think we find out.
Oh. Again. They split the cupcake and they eat it. Narrator Percy notes that they did eat it with their fingers. How else do you eat a cupcake? Was he gonna like bring out a fork and a knife? No. Is he gonna eat it with chopsticks or slurp it up with a straw? Of course you ate it with your hands. It's a cupcake. They look out at the ocean, and Annabeth tells Percy that he saved the world, and he corrects, we saved the world. Annabeth gets right to business. I respect her for it. She states that since Rachel Elizabeth there is the Oracle, she won't be dating anyone anytime soon. Percy replies, you don't sound disappointed. And she says that she doesn't care, and Percy says, uh-huh. She cocks an eyebrow and asks Percy if he has something to say to her, and he says that she'd probably kick his butt. She says, "You know I would kick your butt." Percy wipes his hands and then shares that Nico told him at the River Styx that he needed something to tether him to reality. He continues that on Olympus, when he was given the choice to be a god, but before he can continue that thought, Annabeth cuts in to say, "Oh, you so wanted to." And it's very cute. I like them having their cute dynamic again. We had this earlier. We had a bit of a break. Things were testy in book 4 and in parts of book 5, but them being cute and kind of taking little playful jabs at each other makes me feel really good about the whole situation, their whole dynamic, etc. Percy admits that he may have wanted to a little, but he didn't truly want it because he didn't want to stay the same for eternity. His reasoning being that things could always get better, and he was thinking ... And Annabeth asks, anyone in particular, which I was a little confused. Am I a doofus, or does that question not make sense in context with what he said? Like, is she just jumping ahead? Because he didn't say anything about a person. So for her to respond to anyone in particular felt weird to me.
Yeah, I think the implication is just it's a really weighty ... that she, read right into, like reading between the lines of why he chose. But grammatically, you are correct. It doesn't track.
Yeah, and I think this might be one of those things where just reading it versus hearing it, like the combination of context clues of facial expressions and tone. Maybe she's like, okay, he's gonna say something about being with me, so now just, if it was something where maybe the tone, and we'll see this in the show, but maybe the tone's like, anyone in particular? Then it's very clear that she's fast forwarding.
She's connecting the two things that he's telling her about.
Right.
There was a tether that I needed and a reason to not be a god.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Glad we're on the same page now. Percy looks at her, and she's fighting back a smile. And Percy whines that she's laughing at him. She insists that she isn't, and he says that she's not making this easy. And then she lets out a huge laugh and puts her hands around his neck and says, quote, "I am never, ever going to make things easy for you, seaweed brain. Get used to it." And then plants a big ol' kiss on Percy Jackson. Yep. Really good, really cute. Annabeth, very smooth. Very smooth.
I really liked this interaction because from her perspective, it easily could have been, oh, now that Rachel isn't an option, am I her consolation prize? Mm-hmm. But we know that Percy had already decided, he chose Annabeth was his tether to mortality. She was the reason that, he didn't want to become a god. Mm-hmm. Her giving him the chance to explain that it's not just oh, I guess you're my only option now.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go, yeah.
I think it's good, and I think it does prove it is a lesson in good communication, because clearly once they just have the ability to sit down and talk like regular people and not have to constantly be worried about saving the world, then things are pretty much okay, and they have a good time and they can explain themselves. But yeah,
I'm sure things will be fine for them.
Everything's gonna be totally normal and fine and good. Everything's gonna be okay. That prophecy is probably not gonna happen for 70 more years or whatever. But yeah, I think you're right. I would hope that by Percy saying, oh, there's only one thing that prevented me from dying in the River Styx, and then also the only reason I turned down being a literal god was you. You think she'd be
it's kind of romantic.
Yeah. I think he might like me.
He might like me.
Do you like me? Yes or no? Circle.
You probably tell all the girls that they're the reason that you're tethered to mortality.
If I had a nickel for every time. So, narrator Percy, about this kiss, says, when she kissed me, I had the feeling my brain was melting right through my body. I could have stayed that way forever, except a voice behind us growled, well, it's about time.
When did this become a surprise party?
Yeah. I do want to know, was everyone watching this? Did one person see them sitting and bring them over? Was it Chiron, as I had alluded to earlier in this episode? Is he the one gossiping, being like, Percy and Annabeth, oh my goodness. They didn't exactly confirm who said it, but they do say that Clarice is leading the charge. Does that imply that Clarice is the one who said it? Because if so, I love that.
Yeah, she's the one that usually growls, so.
Yep. The pavilion is then filled with campers, Clarice leading the charge. Percy complains that they can't get a little bit of privacy. Clarice giddily says that the lovebirds need to cool off. Connor Stoll screams, "The canoe lake!" And the group carries them down the hill. And shout out to the group, they carry them close enough to where Percy and Annabeth can still hold hands.
Cute.
The facilitation of cuteness is so wonderful. Annabeth and Percy are both laughing. Percy's face is completely red. They hold hands just up until they are dumped, and then I wrote on my nose, dumped into the water. Narrator Percy tells us that he had the last laugh, though. And yeah, I figured that would be the case because they threw the water guy into water. Why did they think anything else would happen? So what happens when they get thrown in is that Percy made an air bubble at the bottom of the lake, and then the campers were stuck waiting for them to come up. I hope every camper gathered what was going on and they all remembered that he was the son of the sea god. Because I can just imagine
nobody dove in after them.
Well, nobody's like, they've been down there a long time, guys. Should we go in? Are they okay?
Read the room, Fred.
But they keep them all waiting for a while, and narrator Percy about this says, quote, "But hey, when you're the son of Poseidon, you don't have to hurry," and it was pretty much the best underwater kiss of all time. Very romantic. Yeah, indeed.
I thought this was like a little scandalous.
Oh, really?
I mean, just like, yeah, they're underwater. Who knows what they're doing? But I mean, it's a middle grade book, so we know that it was just a kiss. But yeah, to everyone else being like, are they? What's happening? Should we go? We should go.
Yeah, they probably all should have left. Maybe leave one person behind to make sure that they're not dead. But yeah.
Designated lifeguard.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that is the end of chapter 22. And that is the end of this portion of this episode of the Newest Olympian. If you're listening to the podcast at home, we'll have a little break, and then we'll get into Q&A.
Hey there, it's Mike. Gonna take another break here just because this is such a long episode for some more of those ads, some of them which will be read by me and others of them which won't, and the ones that are not read by me are inserted locally. Once the ads are complete, we will conclude this episode of TNO with the very, very fun Q&A from Minnesota. This episode of TNO is brought to you by G Adventures. Now, some people around this time of year, whether it's for Thanksgiving or the holidays or whatever's coming up at the end of the year, they will go on some sort of destination trip. Now, maybe you want to go on some sort of destination trip or you're looking to travel, but you're not exactly sure what to do. Well, G Adventures is here to help. G Adventures offers over 600 small group trips around the world, and they have different trips depending on your style, whether you're looking for something more active or more relaxed, and these trips are focused on community tourism. And now is a great time to check out G Adventures because their biggest sale of the year is here. They've got a cyber sale that runs until November 30th, 2023, where you can save up to 30% on a whole bunch of trips that travel before April 30th, 2024. And if you want something a little later, that's okay because you can save 10% on select adventures that leave between May 1st and June 30th of 2024. So you can check out gadventures.com/cyber-sale. That's gadventures.com/cyber-sale to check out these trips and go on the trip of a lifetime whenever you're feeling most like you want to do that today.
A lot of folks sent in fun questions, so let's get to those fun questions. All right. This first one is from Tim. The subject line, all caps. Kelly Mullenbach is having a birthday August 13th. Really enjoys listening to your show. Question below. So, happy birthday, Kelly, in 3 days. Nice choice of name, I guess, to your parents. Now, Tim's question, I guess on behalf of Kelly, is what have you liked about Minnesota so far? Weather, as pointed out, quite nice. Things were good. I have just enjoyed, the general vibes. Been to a couple of parks. Everything was really nice. Every person we've interacted with has been really nice. It's just been like a very pleasant time. I would just say overall, it's very pleasant here. And it's been very nice.
Yeah, I mean, we know that like the vibe of a big city isn't always like representative of an entire state, but really liked the like architecture of the Mill District where we were saying.
Yeah.
Like, it was really cool to walk around the lake there.
Yeah, it was fun. Good stuff. Good vibes. I see why people live here. Now, this next question is from Erica. Erica says, "Hi, Mike. Thanks for coming back to the land of 10,000 lakes. Question, What city would you like to see Percy travel to in the books, and why? One that he hasn't visited yet. I would like to see Percy go to London and hate it. I think it would be very funny. I feel like he would be frustrated by the tube. I feel like he would be confused by lots of the things. I think he wouldn't understand why the big Ferris wheel is a big deal. I think he would not like London, and it would be very fun to hear him grumble about it. Do you have a city that you would like to see him visit?
I mean, I think he hit all the main ones, or maybe I'm thinking of the other books, but I don't know, like New Orleans would be cool. There's like a lot of water stuff there.
And then you can get into creepy, maybe spooky stuff as well.
Oh yeah, Nico takes him on a tour.
Oh, they go on a ghost tour. Yeah, it could be really, really fun. Also, I live down in Rochester, an hour and a half drive southeast, but my friend Amanda traveled all the way from Birmingham, Alabama, 1,073 miles to see the show tonight. Alabama, look at it go. Whoa. So, thank you for making that big trip. Shout out to you. I hope you enjoyed the show.
You beat me for this person.
This next question is from Lexi. Subject line, I may live in Minnesota, but I'm a Packers fan. I don't care about football at all. Now that you're nearly done with the Percy Jackson series, at least the original, is this the series that we should have read all along instead of Harry Potter?
Do you think we're like, is it safe to answer that yet, or do you need to read
after I read
20 words left of chapter 23?
Yeah, in strategically planning everything, I was like, oh yeah, I'll save the last chapter for the last episode. And then I just looked and I was like, oh, it's only 4 pages? Oh, jeepers. We're going to have to stretch, Kelly. We'll figure something out. But I will say, just at least for my personal preference, I've enjoyed these books more than Harry Potter. I think there's lots of biased reasons. The main character's spunky kid from New York. I think there's a lot of different reasons why I personally like them more. So I think they're at least more my style. I would say my biased answer is yes, but at least and hopefully the TV show will do this, it should at least be on the same tier as Harry Potter. And especially now, given the disparity in between the coolness and niceness of the authors, I would certainly say that it should be the book series that is more highly regarded. So my answer is yes. I'm not going to speak on behalf of everyone, but they're really good. They're really good books, and I'm very excited to continue to do the sequel and spin-off stuff for the next 35 years, which will be nice. Do you have a preference of the Percy Jackson books over the Harry Potter books?
It's hard to say. I mean, I was really into the Harry Potter books as they were coming out, and then the books ended and the movie ended, and I think I grieved them hardcore and was really sad there were no more Harry Potter books, but then I got over it. I kind of put it behind me. And so I think now I can look at it more critically, that I think what it mostly has going for is the 7 books in the main series is a little bit more marketable than the 5 and then the 5 more in the other series, but it's kind of hard to market that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, in terms of world building, I think this is a little bit more cohesive, maybe?
Yeah, I will have to see as the sequel stuff goes on, but I think that the structure of the sequel series where you've got the main characters, I think it's very smart to make the sequel series not just about Percy. I think that was the problem with Cursed Child, is that it was all the same characters, but then a big time jump and everyone's acting differently. Draco is regressed to being a jerk and Ron is Fred now. So I feel like them doing a thing where it's yeah, we still get some people, but here's all these new folks as well. I think that's a smart approach. So it just feels like Rick maybe addressed the world of it better, and I'll just have to see how it goes. But yeah, I'll just have to continue to answer that question over the course of however long my career of doing Percy Jackson stuff lasts. Now this next question is from Wes. Wes says, hi Shubes, I remember when you came here last time, you were stunned that there was only one Amtrak train heading up this way each day. I laughed because I couldn't understand what alternate reality you were describing. Well, we visited Boston a couple weeks ago and went to take a train south to New York, and there were so many options every day. Needless to say, we're now very jealous. Also, Minnesota in general hates Wisconsin, but we will admit they have good cheese. So your comment about Wisconsin cheese curds, bars here often advertise that they serve Wisconsin cheese curds. So we hate them, but we will eat their cheese. I also saw in a lot of the emails that people were saying we hate them, but we're the only one that can make fun of them, and them with us, a very sibling rivalry.
Which one is the big sibling or the little sibling?
They can answer that one. I'm not gonna. As far as newest Olympian questions, if our heroes were all independent podcast boys like you, what sort of podcasts do you think they would be hosting? I love all your shows. Thanks for visiting the Twin Cities again. I'll be back every time. So, what podcasts do we think that the folks are hosting?
I mean, Grover's pretty easy. Some kind of, nature conservancy, advocacy.
Yeah,
podcast.
I could see him doing a thing, kind of like a podcast, and I would listen to this if this thing existed, kind of just like a
tour of the national parks.
Ooh, that could be fun. Or he could do something where it's just like, here's the little things you can do to kind of help, to maybe try to fight against the dreaded, it feels like...
Mr. Dare.
Yeah. Or just the existential doom of, what can I do? I'm not Exxon. But I feel like that would be a nice little thing from Grover. Just a little like, hey, try doing this. Or like, oh, if you live in New York, there's new compost bins around, which they're super cool. As far as the other folks, I feel like Tyson would just have a really fun, like, here's the thing I like podcast. Just him talking about things that he likes.
It's mostly Rainbow.
Yeah. Oh, Rainbow's a recurring
peanut
guest.
butter, I guess.
Yeah. And then I could see Annabeth doing one of those like history podcasts where they try to show you like history class doesn't have to be boring. So maybe she just like talks to you about cool architecture things and tries to put like a fun spin on it. Maybe I'm self-editorializing here, but I would love if Percy hosted a basketball podcast.
I think you may be a little too close to answer, honestly.
Percy, come on, horse. Let's go. All right. This next question is from Amanda. Amanda says, hey, Mike, love the show so far. If you could have a Pegasus, what would its name be? What would it look like? Super swole, in question marks. And what accent would it have? Love the pod. P.S. We have Rachel Elizabeth Dairy, like milk, shirts on because in an episode, you say someone did something Rachel Elizabeth Dare-y, and it's a peak joke. That's great. Come up to the stage after the show so I can see your shirt. Now, if we could have a Pegasus, what would you name it? What would it look like? And what accent would it have?
Don't know about a name.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like a horse from Kentucky would be really funny.
Oh, like a Kentucky Derby joke?
Yeah, it just has like a real thick drawl.
Ooh, yeah.
Whatever color thoroughbreds come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would, let's see. If I'm thinking just like based on accents, because I do love the stereotypical accent that I give Blackjack. I always did have a fun time hearing people's French accents when I lived in France. So maybe I could get like a French horse. And I don't know, I just know that French braids are a thing. So maybe it has a braided mane and it's a French horse. And then its name is pamplemousse, because that's my favorite French word.
That's pretty solid.
It's the best word for the worst fruit, which is the grapefruit. So that would be my pick. Pamplemousse, the Pegasus. All right, this next one is from Timothy. The subject line is Minnesota has more real lakes. We know that when satyrs die, they reincarnate as a plant. If this was true for humans, what plant do you think you would reincarnate as?
Maybe like a magnolia tree, just because we had a lot of those growing up.
Ooh.
They're pretty cool.
I like that. I would want to be like a mint bush, if bush is the technical term, whatever a mint plant is, because I really like mint. I think it smells nice. I like to make mint tea. Here's a pro tip for making mint tea. You just put mint leaves in water, and then you can make mint tea. I was flabbergasted that was how you make really good mint tea.
And then the rest of us get to drink you.
Nom, 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 nom. Well, the key is that for a mint plant to survive, you can't rip off all of the leaves. So in that way, I wouldn't get like murdered.
And some of us get to drink.
Yeah, some. And then you can wait, and then more. But yeah, I think I would like that. I like a good mint plant. We have one growing in our little home garden thing, and it grows so rapidly, we have to kind of be particular about making sure it doesn't spread too much and attack the other plants. So we have to monitor our little mint guy. This next question is from Maddie. Maddie says, hey, Mike, if the main characters of the series went to the Olympics, what sports do you think they would compete in? So the characters are going to the Olympics. What do we think they're going to compete in? I feel like Clarice would do one of those fighting ones, like judo or boxing or wrestling, stuff like that. Feels pretty easy.
Annabeth, something like acrobatic maybe, because she's like, the quick, nimble knife fighter. So
maybe Annabeth would do
agile.
Maybe she would do rhythmic gymnastics, which is the one where you do ribbon dancing and hula hoop dancing and the one with the big ball.
Sure.
I loved watching rhythmic gymnastics when I was a kid, and I would be home during the summer and like weird, it's like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. So when they're showing the Olympic stuff, it's not swimming or basketball or whatever. It's rhythmic gymnastics. I very much enjoyed that. I thought it was silly and cool and fun. So that would be Annabeth.
We could have your favorite person, Michael Yu from the Apollo cabin. He's definitely a super important character.
Yes, he is.
In the archery competition.
Yes, that makes sense. Thalia as well could do archery stuff. Maybe Thalia could do... she's really good. She could do like one of the ones that is more things like... There's the snow one, though, like biathlon, where they're like ski a lot and then shoot stuff. I feel like she could do that. Percy, obviously want to do something in the water. So swimming feels like an easy choice, but he could also do... There's like the kayaking one, or I think surfing as well.
Yeah, I think sailing is...
Oh, sailing's a good one. Yeah, because he was very adept when it came to things with the ship. So yeah, I could see him doing the sailing one. Grover. What do you think Grover's doing? He plays the reed pipes. Is he doing the theme song? He's doing a remix of the Olympic theme.
Yeah, he seems more like the creative type.
Okay. I think the Stoll brothers are the commentating duo. They're on the broadcast. And they're definitely the type, which I always think is wild, when it's a commentator that is not former Olympian, when someone does something and they're like, oh, really messed up there. Like, Simone Biles' toe moved 4 millimeters. Oh, that's going to be a big deduction. It's like, you do it. You go up there. I'm a big proponent of in the Olympics, before every event, they should just send like a regular person. Be like, you do the vault. And they're just like, I think.
So everyone knows what the baseline should be.
Right. Especially in the racing ones.
Here's John.
Hey, guys. I think in the racing ones, they should do this because normally they'll have the line going where it's like, oh, here's what the world record is. Here's the Olympic record. And then it should be like, here's John.
And all of you watching at home would be back here.
Right. Usain Bolt is celebrating and John's line still got a couple meters left. So yeah, I think the Olympics with these Olympians could be very, very fun. All right, this next one is from Shannon. The subject line is leaving Minneapolis. Hi, Mike. I know you've lived outside of the U.S. before, and I am off for grad school in Dublin. That's very cool. What is your fondest adjusting to a new place memory? It's just the Twin Cities, Shannon. So, adjusting to a new place.
What did you call it earlier?
I don't know. Like, I was confused about the Minneapolis / St. Paul / is it hyphenated? Is it a slash? Are there two separate things? The cities are so close to each other. I don't get it. But my fondest adjusting to a new place memory. I have moved quite a bit over my life because of my engineering job and stuff.
I feel like your move from New Jersey to Texas was probably the biggest culture shock.
That was certainly pretty big culture shock wise and just like formative time in my life. So yeah, I was able to make a friend early on because there was someone looking to like carpool to the high school that I was going to that was kind of far away because it was a private school and we lived out in the burbs. But I'm trying to, I think maybe fondest would be when I did move to France, which was also quite the large culture shock to go Texas to France, though Texas is bigger than France. I was very fortunate just that I was trying to find people to associate with, friends with, stuff like that outside of my roommates and coworkers. And I ended up doing English speaking stand-up over there and just very quickly made a bunch of friends that were kind of in the same boat, a lot of expats and stuff like that. So I think just it being such a weird thing and me knowing literally no one, because in a lot of the other places I moved there might be someone that I knew. I think that would be it. Though also, I think what actually, now that I'm realizing, might be the right answer. When I moved to San Francisco / the Bay Area, I lived in Berkeley, Oakland area. Oh, cool. When I moved there, it was right after my first 6 months out of college. It was my first time as an adult making a move. And my buddy Sal, a friend of mine that we did improv together in college, and he happened to message me. He was like, hey, I'm forming an improv team. And our first practice was last week. Do you want to join? So it was literally I had just gotten into town and then ended up stepping right into an improv team with one of my old really good friends. And then we did a whole bunch of that. And then I made a bunch of friends that way. So the fact that that just happened right away was pretty cool. And I do remember when I was going into San Francisco on the very first day, I went from the apartment I was staying in the East Bay. I went on the BART and then was going up the escalator into San Francisco to hang out with Sal. And just at the top of the escalator on the sidewalk was a dude just peeing straight up into the air like a fountain onto the sidewalk. And I was like, I have arrived.
This is your favorite story?
I was just like, I'm here, baby, San Francisco. So that would be that. All right, this next one is from Leah. Leah says, hi, Mike and Michael. I love the show. I listen to Potterless too, but Percy Jackson has my heart. You are undisputedly in St. Paul. I don't know if there's anything more St. Paul than the intersection of University and Snelling. I did like that Snelling was the stop. I was like, what a fun name for a street. Here's my question. My friend and I both work at Planned Parenthood. We would like to know who of the main characters you think would volunteer as an escort and walk people in and glare at protesters. Thank you for coming, Leah and Sam.
I think the most effective would be Clarice.
Oh, that'd be a good glare. Argus could also be a good glarer, as we established, because he could look at everyone at the same time. I think from like a personality perspective, though, I feel like Annabeth feels like a good like champion of women's rights. Thalia as well. I feel like the two of them could go in and give like a real nasty vibe to anyone trying to throw shade. But yeah, Clarice for efficiency. She probably gives a real mean glare. Okay, this next one is from Allison, and this one says, hi, Mike, loving the show. Canonically, all the Pegasus seem to be part of the New York City mob. What would their mob name be, and what job does each Pegasus have? P.S. There's a band called The Happy Return who wrote a song called Annabeth as an homage to the character. Worth a listen. I'll have to take note of that. Now,
I know nothing about mob lore, so...
I don't know much aside from films that I don't know how accurate they are. So I'm not really sure, but I guess like generally we could just pick kind of like general mob jobs for our three friends of
like
Blackjack,
face.
Pork Pie. Yeah, Blackjack would be the face, the mouthpiece, he's doing the talking. Very much
Guido's
like
the muscle.
Yeah, and then Pork Pie's the comic relief.
Yeah.
We don't really get a whole lot of Pork Pie
content
yet. I look forward to the Pork Pie spin-off book. But yeah, I could see that being that. But I think Guido as the muscle makes sense. And I feel like Blackjack would be very much like the Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, like mostly the, like
the front
swift
man.
talker, front man, but like also you don't want to mess with him kind of guy. So yeah, I think that could be that. Pretty fun. Mob name for them though?
Some kind of horse.
Some
or
horse.
Pun.
Like there's a whole thing with like cement shoes. So maybe something with like cement horseshoes maybe is the name. So they put cement on people's feet so that they... This one is from Lynn. Lynn says, hey, Shubes, love your show. I've been listening since 2018, so it's wild I'm finally able to see you in person. Just to feed into the Wisconsin/Minnesota rivalry, what are some of your favorite Minnesota memories so far? I feel like we've touched on that one. For Percy Jackson, what are two characters that haven't interacted a lot in the books, but you think totally deserve their own spin-off series? I like thinking of this in more of like an unlikely pair situation, but if we have two friends together that we might not think would gel, what kind of story would you want to see?
I think like a redemption road trip with Annabeth and Rachel would be interesting.
Oh, let's bury the hatchet. We have to fight against something we both
just
want to.
making fun of Percy the entire time.
I mean, yeah. I think that really does track. I want to see, I've talked about this before, I do want to know what happened when Grover and Tyson had to go off in the fourth book.
Yeah.
Because that was established in that book where at the beginning they were like, oh, by the way, we probably should have said this earlier, but Grover and Tyson don't really like each other. I think the fact that they had to put their differences aside and do a whole little scary side quest in the heat
it was
of
like
it.
a while, right? That like they split and then like the volcano thing and the island thing and then and so it was like weeks before they like caught up with them and found Pan.
Right. There's a lot
that could happen.
A lot went down. So I think it could be interesting. That would be my pick. If I was trying to pick like any other pairing though, I feel like one of the Stolls and Clarice, she would be so angry at them all the time that I think it could have a fun vibe.
She pairs well with anyone, I think. Just
Yeah.
comedically, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I feel like as long as she's with anyone except for like Chris Rodriguez, there's going to be some fun butting of the heads. Okay, this one is from Sydney. I'm from Wisconsin. Please don't hate me. Why would I hate you? Why? I have no horse in this race.
Yeah, we are neutral here.
We are neutral parties. I like everyone who came to the show. They bought a ticket. And, more things. It's not just about money. Anyway, Sydney says, hi, Mike. I'm a huge fan of your shows, and thanks so much for coming to the cities. My question, I'm a huge golfer, and I was wondering how much you think Percy would hate golf. Which Percy Jackson character would hate golf the least? Thanks again, Sydney. Hate golf the most is going to be Grover because it's terrible for the environment.
Yeah.
Percy would definitely hate it too because it is also a gross misuse of water.
And I think he'd just be way too impatient.
Yeah. I have a strained relationship with golf in that my dad loves it. He's very good at it. And I'm like right in the tier where I'm like good enough to hold my own, but not good enough where like 1 out of every 4 shots I just shank. Like 3 out of them will be great, and then the 4th one is off to the side, and that's the most frustrating place to be in. So I could see Percy having similar frustration just in that like it is a frustrating game, and I think he could get upset. If there's anyone that would be the least hateful of it, though.
Maybe like Mr. D.
Oh, he does feel like a golf guy.
He knows that everyone else hates it, and like you're drunk the whole time, I
guess. He's got the like Saturday with the boys like kind of golfer vibe. Mr. D also feels like the kind of guy when no one's looking to like kick his ball to improve his lie or take 3 strokes out of the sand and be like, oh, I got out in 1. Use some magic to make the ball roll into the hole. I could see him definitely being a big golfer. And then if the Marvel Cinematic Universe is anything to tell us about golfing, because Hawkeye shot 18, impossible. He's just a guy. Maybe all of the hunters are good at golf too, because archery and golf are the same.
I guess.
Yeah. If there's anyone, if you do think of like logistically, some of the best golfers who are also NBA players are 3-point shooters because they're really good at muscle memory, and it's a sport all about like repeating the same muscles. So if there's anything that involved muscle memory, so maybe that could be kind of the archers.
So then probably Apollo, because the archery and he's like kind of rap bro.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I think that works. I like that you're bringing the golf vibes into it, and I'm thinking way too logistically about the sport of golf. This is why I always have a guest for these shows. Okay, this one is from Kathy. Kathy says, hey, Mike and Michael, theoretically, a season of Survivor is based in Minnesota. Which god will survive the longest, and which god is out first? So it's Survivor Minnesota edition.
I hear there are a lot of lakes.
There are a lot of lakes. Poseidon's probably doing well. Water is doing well for him. Survivor in general, I trust Artemis to do very well. I don't trust Apollo to hold his own. Maybe Minnesota aside, but he's the sun guy. It does get cold here. That could be a tough one for him. But I just also think in general, being on Survivor is not going to be his vibe. So I think he would probably go out first. And longest, yeah, I would probably say Poseidon because of the 10,000 lakes, because there's even more than 10,000 I've heard. No, they told me that last year.
Oh, they have more than 10,000 lakes.
Yes.
I thought the person saying was we have more lakes than someone else, and I was confused because didn't we already say that? So I'm with you now.
Yeah, but I think there's even more than 10,000. But I think it just doesn't sound as snippy to say like the land of 12,142 lakes, something like that. I'm sure it's changing all the time as well. Okay, this one is from Laura. The subject line, Wisconsin sucks. Oh, perfect, great. Okay, so this is how we ended the show in Milwaukee, and I think this is a perfect way to end the show in Minnesota. Laura says, hi, Mike, love the show. Can't believe we got such good chapters. This is making up for me not getting the surprise songs I wanted on the Eras Tour. Oh, I'm so sorry. Kelly has explained that whole dynamic to me, and I kind of got that a little bit when we saw BTS in LA, and it was like, there will be, they have a couple of rotating songs, and like one of my favorite BTS songs wasn't like the thing, so like, I'm very sorry. I hope whenever you all see Taylor Swift, she plays that one song you wanted her to play. Now, she did? Good. I'm glad you're okay. Laura's pissed. You seem to not know a lot about Midwestern cities, so we have to make you do the traditional Minnesota hazing test of making you try to pronounce these city names. Best of luck. All right. What's very funny is when we did this in Wisconsin, it was very much like more native sounding names. And because I lived in Seattle for 2 years, I pretty much knew what I was doing. These are just, they look too easy, which is what scares me. I'm worried that it's going to be, if one of them was like Smith, they'd be like, no, it's Smythe. I'm really scared. So this first one is Wayzata.
Wayzata?
I would guess if it's not Wayzata, I would just go straight down the barrel and say Wayzata. No. What is the correct answer? Wayzata?
That's not what that vowel is.
W-A-Y. Z-A-T-A. Okay. Wyzetta? Sure. This next one, L-U-T-S-E-N?
Gotta be Lutzen.
I'll go
Maybe Lutzen.
I'll go Lutzen. Okay. Cool. This next one, this seems far too simple. G-A-Y-L-O-R-D. Is it not Gaylord?
Gaylord?
What is it? Gaylord, so he was right? Okay. So you just kind of say it more like Baylor University, Gaylord. Okay, this next one, F-A-I-R-B-A-U-L-T. The laughter makes me think it's not Faribault. I'm gonna guess Faribault.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Faribault.
Okay, what is it?
Leave it in the French.
Oh. I don't know that it is. So like Faribault, or do you? Okay, I need one person. You in the front. You look the most confident. You tell me how to say this city's name.
Like a bow and arrow.
Oh, Faribault? That would be if it was B-E-A-U-X. Okay,
Or just the
Faribault.
T, but the
Okay.
L and the... Yeah.
Faribault. Oh, no, but yeah, like, okay, I could see it. Yeah, okay, Faribault. Okay, I'll give it to you. This next one, M-A-H-T-O-M-E-D-I. I'm gonna guess Matomedy.
Yeah, I got nothing. if
My
it's not
only
that.
other thought would be like Matomedi, but that seems too weird. What is it?
Matamedi?
Matamida?
Matamedi.
Sorry, is the M like duh? Matamidi? Guys. Okay. This is the exact opposite of how things went when I was Yahtzee. And this final one also seems way too easy. N-E-W space P-R-A-G-U-E. Now, if it's not New Prague, I will be floored. Prague? Okay. That feels like someone from Minnesota went to the Czech Republic. It's like, oh, they got a city named Prague. And then it made its way back. Let's make a new one, yeah.
I come from the state of Arab and Mobile.
Yeah. Well, that has been Try to Pronounce Minnesota City Names from Laura. And that has been this episode in this live show of the newest Olympian. How fun. Thank you all so much for coming out to the show. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it out, especially if you traveled far to be here. Give it up to Michael for being an incredible guest. Give it up to everyone here at Turf Club, the venue, for being fantastic. Food was great. The sound was so awesome. Hospitality was great. The emails when they were organizing things was really easy. So that was all a very smooth process. Give it up to Hollis for running the merch table. Thank you so much. You can still go to the merch table and check it out back there on your way out if you would like. But yeah, thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. This has been a blast and a half. I'll have to come back again to the Twin Cities to do another show. Maybe Heroes of Olympus. We'll see where I'm at that point in time. But I really appreciate everyone coming out. Thank you all so much. And until we cross paths again, I'll... Thanks so much for coming out, everybody!
Hey there! Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you want to be a part of the show's community, you can find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. There's also a subreddit, reddit.com/r/The Newest Olympian. And then there's also the Discord that you get access to by joining any tier of the Patreon over at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. If you want to get some TNO merch, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/merch. And if you want to support the show, show. And as a thank you, get access to a whole bunch of bonus content. You can do that at thenewsolympia.com/Patreon. Speaking of that Patreon, let's give a shout out to our producer level patrons: Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskov-Chova, Veronica Bartova, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Peter Johnson the Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Casey Williams, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayre, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Wise Girl, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Caden Max, Sam Reeby, Riley Kiddes, Mary Kelly, Audra, Mrs. O'Leary, Rodith Kalma, Milo Kim, Harlan Christ, CC Reeds 23, Sandkoff, Julia Kendall, Emil Oskar Thomason, Liz Cardigan, Sarah Neal, Ricky, John Drielsma, Rayla Matthews, Riley Draken, Luna Kadoon, Sky Mallory, Elizabeth Obermiller, Aidan Parziani, Biggest Tyson fan, Hunter Landstrom, Captain Jack Rackham, Sky Captain and the Princess, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction coming up, Ethan Robinson, Ginger Spursboy, Joshua Aid, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Lux, Neil, Will Buchanan, and Olivia Krenicki. If you want to support the show in a non-monetary way, simply talking about the show is so helpful. Word of mouth is huge. So you can tell someone that you know who loves Percy Jackson about the podcast, or you can talk to someone who's looking for an excuse to finally get into the Percy Jackson books about it, or someone who's maybe getting hyped for the TV show that's coming up and they want to understand what's going on, or you could post about the show on social media, or you could leave us a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. All of these things really do help. I'm very appreciative to everyone who has already done so and to anyone who will do so in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode and hope you tune into our next episode, the final main series book episode, guest starring Kelly Schubert, as we conclude The Last Olympian with a discussion of chapter 23 and some questions about my thoughts over the entire series. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So while I was recording the mid-roll break and all of the other stuff that I put in after the fact, I got a text message from my aunt and I had to type out a response to it, which I did on my computer. So I will just use the sounds of me typing as the ASMR Mike segment for this episode. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for listening.